What's going on, my pretty pandas? It's your huggable hipster here for another episode of Psychologically Gaming. Now, in today's episode of Psychologically Gaming, we are going to be tackling something very unique that I thought of at the wee hours of 4 o'clock in the morning, where I could not figure out what to do or what to even come up with for this video, because I was like, I don't know what character to delve into psychologically. Why don't we delve into a place instead of a character? And I thought, there are a lot of booby traps and a lot of different things that you have to get past in the very first Resident Evil game. Whenever I think of a game that is very potent in its exploration to kind of, take the human apart down to their most basic form of fear and that fight or flight instinct, I think of that game. I think of Resident Evil 1 Remake, honestly. Now, when dealing with a topic like this, we have to be very careful in discussing the psychology of a place, because you get into so many technicalities that you can't really personify a place. That's impossible to do, but you can give it humanistic qualities through the people who have been in that place, if that makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of psychoanalyze the place as if it had its own personal entity. I know that sounds kind of weird, but bear with me on this. So we have Albert Wesker, we have a lot of the masterminds behind Resident Evil, we have a lot of the people who worked in the Arklay Mountains in the laboratories that kind of made this place, The person in the story who created the mansion was Spencer. Spencer is the entire mastermind behind all of the booby traps and the puzzles that we see inside the mansion. And one of the very unique things about not only the story, the characters, but the place is that like I said, it kind of breaks you down to your most vulnerable parts. And that's where we really see the personality thrive in a lot of the characters, because Jill Valentine, Barry, even Wesker, they have very similar personality traits of where you see them just as cops. They're there to complete a job, they're there to complete a mission, they're there to investigate, but they don't really know what's about to hit them. And that's where I think that the place kind of affects the person to a certain extent, because we see different traps, like, okay, insert clip here of the one that almost squishes Jill. She becomes a sandwich on more than one occasion. A lot of the things that happen in this game are very determined on the choices that you make, much like Layers of Fear, much like Outlast is very set in stone. You have to run, hide, or die, but still, there are choices that you make within this game, in particular Resident Evil, that determine how your character is going to last throughout the game. Will it be you getting less herbs? Will it be you completing a challenge on time? Will it be you actually getting to savor the characters like Richard Aiken? Will it be you getting to save Rebecca if you're playing as Chris? Will it be you saving Rebecca from one of the hunters? There's a whole host of things that contribute to how your psychology or your psychological development increases or decreases as you progress through the game. Now you're probably asking, well, Ariel, how does this really, have to do with the place, more or less? Could it just be the person because they're experiencing all of this? It's not the place that's experiencing the person, it's vice versa. The thing is, with the person experiencing the place, it has an effect on their well-being. It has an effect on kind of their homeostasis, if you will. When they first went into the mansion, and I'm talking like if you're playing from Jill's perspective, because I played more so from Jill's perspective than I have from Chris's, you will experience a sense of wanting to find your way out as fast as possible. That's at least what I've experienced whenever I played Jill. And the thing is that you can play her two ways. You can just get out of there by yourself, not save anybody, or you can save both Barry or Chris, or you could just save Chris, or you could just save Barry. There's a whole host of options that you can do with this. You have different booby traps that you have to go into where, for example, there's one where you have to get the armor key. The armor key is very important in progressing in the game, where you have to actually go inside past the dining room. A lot of my peeps who have played this game thoroughly, you know which place I'm talking about. Now, with getting the armor key, you have to go inside that room and you have to actually read what is on the armor. You know, a lot of people might go past this and everything, but there is one saying in particular that always has caught my eye and caught my attention ever since I played it first when I was 10 years old. It is a first engraving that states death is only the beginning. And there's a final engraving that I believe states death is peace, where you have all of these things that are very poetic, very melodramatic, very intense in its behavior and rich in emotion. And I believe it's Edgar Allan Poe that actually wrote those, but I'll have to do some research. Post-production me, you know what to do, just fill in the gaps here. But with that, it is actually counterbalancing the struggle between life and death, saying that it is beautiful, but you're gonna die if you don't have the right key in there. There's a lot that happens. It's, a lot of the poetry that's engraved into a lot of the things that actually try to capture you are trying to be that kind of sadistic balance in a way, You have that fight between good and evil, which is why I love the poetry combined with the kind of like the morbid ideal that you have death. You have this kind of memento mori in a way to kind of live with death, know that it's there, but don't fight it. Don't try to run from it, or else, you're gonna die anyway. That's why I find it so fascinating with one of the puzzles in particular, because you are playing Moonlight Sonata to open up a door that leads you to get a plaque that you then have to put inside to another plaque to get a key where you will find a death mask. I find that very kind of like just that equivalent balance of something beautiful with something morbid. And you know what? Maybe it's not even the psychology of the place. Maybe it's just that balance between life and death within this game that is so fascinating and so intricately put to the player that makes it so enticing to play. Now, I don't know if a lot of people do this, look into the game as much as I do, but there's so much psychology that you can dive into, and so many key symbols, and so much that you could interpret and all that kind of stuff. That's really fascinating. We also have to dive into something that I think is really important to the concept of the game, and not oh my god, revolutionary important, but look at the bugs. I was always wondering about the bugs in Resident Evil. Were they affected when everything got transformed and mutated, or were they just something that stayed the same? Or the bugs taking their actual their purpose and drinking blood from humans as sustenance, which actual bugs do, or do the bugs in the game eat one another? It's this whole philosophical, psychological thing that has to be delved into in order to understand the game's story a little bit further. Does a mosquito in the game turn into a zombie mosquito and eat others, mosquitoes, or drink from humans, and would that in turn turn the human into a zombie? It's really interesting to think about. You have these different parts of the game. You have the mansion, you have the farmhouse, you have these different levels that aren't really levels, but it's more like just a cohesively built story around just a crazy plot line of trying to understand yourself through the character and vice versa. Because I believe that even with every game, I believe that there is a psychological point of where the character itself becomes the person and vice versa. Character that you pick that character for a reason to play in a game, and it's no shock that whenever you end the game you're like, oh, I feel so emotionally attached to that character, but it's the journey that you felt, and it's the emotional exhilaration that you felt from playing that character. So I heavily believe that in every game you can be psychologically impacted by the place and the person, but more so the place, because it's the people that influence the place, and you can have a place that influences the people, but not most likely, because you can't personify a place until you have people there to influence it, But I hope you guys like this video. I hope it made sense in a way. This was very all over the place. I realized that because I did not write a script out for it. But yeah, if you guys like my face and what I do, please be sure to subscribe and hit the bell down below, because I make videos every weekday, and I know YouTube has not been sending out notifications to my peeps, so that's kind of frustrating, to say the least. Stay casually nerdy, you guys, and I will see you all in tomorrow's episode of Red Dead Redemption 2. Peace.